Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I double click on myself to make that the main screen, where I can clearly see that I should have done my hair if I was going to record the session, but that's fine. Anyway, so today we will also, I'm bleeding. This is like not a good day to record. I just have to explain. You ever get like a little hangnail and you're like, I'm just going to quickly deal with that. Instead of though using like nail clippers like a proper human, you like rip it off with your teeth. Anyways.
Yes, yes.
Right? Like, why can't I just be normal? And it's like not stopping. But anyways, we'll do some yoga anyways. So today I'm kind of excited because I have a peak pose planned today. And it's sometimes known as pyramid pose. And it's called, what is it called in Sanskrit? Pyramid pose. Parshvottanasana. I was getting it confused with Parshvakonasana, as you can imagine. Parshvottanasana. I'm a piece that says it's on page, let's see if my index is right. Page 181 to 183. You don't have to have your book with you. It is right. So I don't know if you can see. This is the picture there. So that's a fun one. But there's two ways of, I'm still bleeding. There's two ways of building up to a peak pose. One is doing like vinyasa, getting warmed up and getting those dynamic stretches going. But it's Saturday morning and I'm tired. So there's another way, and that's doing yin. So slow, steady holds in order to get that posture as well. So that's the option I'm going to use this morning. And coincidentally, they're really nice stretches for if you sit at a desk all day. So if you do that, you're going to love this. So let's get started. All right, I'll leave my tissue at my desk. And hope I don't bleed to death. Could you imagine? Death by hangnail. It'll say on my tombstone. So getting started in child's pose or whatever other pose you want to center in. Taking those first few moments to let go of anything you're holding on to. That you don't need right now. And then take a few slow, deep breaths through the nose. And slowly make your way all the way up to seated. And we'll bring the feet forward in Dandasana staff pose. I'll get my trusty little timer. And we'll start with butterfly pose. So it's Baddha Konasana or bound angle, as known in Hatha yoga, but for yin, it's butterfly. So we bring the soles of the feet together and gently lower the knees down towards the mat. And feel free to place a block beneath the knee if needed, or a blanket. But do try to feel upright. So if it feels like it's a struggle to stay upright, then grab a folded blanket, something that can elevate the hips and it can bring that forward feeling. So even if it's just a little bit, leaning forward. I'll get our timer started. We'll do just a 3-minute one today. Sometimes this one is longer, sometimes it's shorter. But this is a really lovely one to start with. And as always, that first one sometimes feels a little bit tight for the first 20, 30 seconds. I love that point where the body gives a little bit, and it usually happens kind of all at once. And if our mind is busy, we often miss it because it's subtle. It's not like we gain a whole bunch of flexibility all at once usually, but maybe it's a millimeter or 2 or 3. So just tuning in and seeing if you can find that moment when the body exhales a little bit, releasing into the pose. And do try to relax everything that you don't need, including the neck. So I'm just noticing I'm kind of looking up. So maybe stacking the forearms, placing the head on the forearms, or maybe that's having a couple blocks, stacking the forehead onto the blocks. Lots of props are really nice for yin. We've got our last 40 seconds or so. See if you can soften a little bit more. And then slowly, slowly come on all the way up. And then send the feet forward into Dandasana staff pose. And we'll head into our second pose of the day, which is forward fold. So this one, I'm really looking forward to, like more excited than I should be. So again, using whatever props you need, and I'll get a 3-minute timer for this one. And I'll just tell you a quick story of why I'm very excited for this one. In yoga, you've probably heard me talk about before, the goal is muscular balance. I mean, there's a lot of goals in yoga, but muscular balance is one of the top goals for our physical practice. So that means equal strength on each side, so left side and right side. It also means a nice balance between strength and flexibility. So we don't want to be hyper flexible with no strength. We want to be able to support the flexibility with an equal and opposite amount of strength. And so what happens often, especially in yoga, we do a lot of forward folding in yoga. Just by nature, I think yoga poses are fairly forward folding heavy. And so, of course, being a responsible yoga teacher, I made sure that I did a lot of strength building as well so that my body can support the strength. So I did a lot of hamstring strengthening, and I recommend everyone does the same. But then I kind of forgot about the forward folding for a while. So the last time I did a hamstring strengthening exercise this past week, I feel like my hamstrings are kind of cramping up. So the remedy to that, I'm going into this detail not because I think you're all fascinated by my left leg, like, ooh, Carla, tell me more. But if it's happening to me, it probably happens to you maybe, or maybe your students, that kind of thing. So the cure is massage and stretch and water. So hydration. So that's my big plan for this wonderful Saturday. Lots of water, especially as the weather gets colder. I like my coffee, I like my tea. So hint, hint, more water. And again, softening in. In our last few moments here, lifting up just enough to take a look at the legs. I'm not going to go into detail about this, but it's kind of, I find it fascinating. Take a peek. Are your legs naturally, don't move them, are they parallel completely? Or do they tend to fall out to the sides a little bit? Or do they tend to tip inward a little bit? I've got one that likes to externally rotate and the other one likes to internally rotate. Not sure why they're not cooperating together, but there's things you can do about that or do with that. We won't get into detail now. For now, learning about the body. So that's step one, learn about it, no judgment, just learning. Do my legs remain completely parallel, or do they like to tip out to the sides, or do they like to tip inward? And then slowly, slowly, come on all the way up. Sometimes I like to lean back a little bit, a couple little knee taps just to counter pose or counter stretch. And then heading into a couple of my favorite wrist stretches. See if my grievous wound is healing. Not good enough. All right, so wrist stretch number one is actually for the fingers. So planting the hands onto the floor, and then we lift the palms up and keep the fingers on the floor. I think my heater has finally warmed me up enough to not wear a snowsuit in yoga. We'll see. Often I get brave and take off my sweater and it doesn't last very long, so we'll see. So stretching for the fingers, and depending on the length of the fingers, make sure that the pinky fingers get a little bit of attention too. But also keep in mind, those are tiny, tiny little muscles in the hands, right? In comparison to our legs. So just be cautious. Not going too far. And these wrist stretches, there's 3 of them I like to do in combination. I like to at least once a month do this set of 3 stretches because of carpal tunnel syndrome. So it's a common human thing that happens. And with our world of, driving, where our hands are kind of curved inward and then holding our cell phones, scrolling, texting, holding a pen, typing on a keyboard. So switching it up, stretching in this opposite position is really, really helpful. And mostly what we're stretching is the ligaments in the fingers. So that's why we like to hold it a little bit longer and not too much of a stretch, just a little stretch, gentle stretch. And then with yin stretches, this isn't like a specific yin thing, it's just kind of a Carla thing. I like to come out like a millimeter, hold, another millimeter, hold, and then come on out nice and slow. It just eases up a little bit on the ligaments and or tendons, depending on what stretch we're doing. And then I like to just do a little bit of wringing of the hands just to make them feel loved again. And then for the forearms, so now we want to stretch the wrists backwards this way, but what we'll do is we'll use the floor. So the backs of the hands rest on the floor, and again, be really cautious and really gentle. So this is muscles, but they're still fairly small. So be a little bit gentle with this one as well. Just a few deep breaths, getting those muscles, those tiny little muscles in the forearms, lots of oxygen. I kind of shouldn't call them tiny little muscles. The forearms in yoga actually get quite defined because of all of the arm balancing, right? We do a lot of planks in yoga. So the forearms actually get quite strong, which is nice. And then slowly, slowly, slowly come on out. So maybe that's just a couple millimeters. Hold, and then all the rest of the way. And then just organic movements, maybe a little bit of wringing of the hands again. Maybe it's a few little circles. And then my favorite one is for the backs of the wrists. So like you're offering a gift and then the palms to the floor, but backwards. So nice and slow. And then eventually the palms will be on the floor. And if you do have a fair amount of flexibility, you'll find that you need to go more. So I like to sit up on the knees and then lean back. So do not overstretch this one. This is, once again, ligaments and muscles. So tendons, ligament, all the things. Really gentle. We'll hold this one just a little bit longer. This one is the best one for carpal tunnel, for making it better if you have it, but in my opinion, more importantly, preventing it from ever happening in the first place. I haven't personally had carpal tunnel myself, so I don't know what it feels like. But I do know that sometimes when I do side plank, my wrists feel funny. And I do think that I might have kind of the beginnings of it. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not a doctor or a physiotherapist, so don't know. But definitely, you might have noticed I'm throwing this one in a little bit more often than usual. So, and I definitely feel like when I do this one first, my side planks feel absolutely fine. So that's one of the things that I've learned with yoga is being more in tune with your body. So if something just doesn't feel right, like I don't feel pain, but something feels funny. It feels funny. Something in my wrist feels funny, like it shouldn't be there. So that's a better point to bring attention and awareness to that part of the body so that we can prevent. Last 15 seconds. Couple deep breaths. And then I would say, especially for this one, come out just a little bit first. Hold. And then the rest of the way, nice and slow. All right. So organic movements. I'm not doing anything specific, just sort of whatever feels nice after that. I'm a big believer in your body knows what to do. Not in yoga poses specifically, that get a teacher, but when you come out, you want to do those little movements to comfort, whatever feels natural there. Okay. I'm starting to slow down and procrastinate because not this exercise, which I love, but the next one I don't love. So we'll do the one I love first. And that is, I like to have a blanket. It's our arm stretch for the shoulder. It's a really awkward one though, but awkward in a good way. So on the floor, what we do is stretch the outside of the shoulder. So pick an arm, any arm. I'll do my left arm so that you can see a little bit better on the screen. I'll take my mic off so I don't joke on it. And it goes underneath so that I'm facing completely downward and trying to stretch right in here. My palm is facing up. My other arm is just there for show. I like to clasp the hands. It doesn't, you just get rid of it, but it helps. Let me get my timer going. And for me, I can't go further than this right now, but after 30 seconds or so, things loosen up quite a bit. Just now, I felt a fairly decent sized release in my shoulder. Maybe you have as well. Doesn't matter either way. Just keep tuning into the body, just noticing what you feel. And last 40 seconds or so, see if you can melt even more, but still really, really, really gentle. Slow and steady really does win the race. And when we come out, same thing again. So come out just a tiny, tiny bit. And then slowly, slowly switching sides. That feels so amazing for me anyways. I love that stretch because it feels so awful when we start and then it somehow changes and feels amazing. All right, other side, and we'll get started. So it's possible that the second side will feel just as awkward as the first. So taking as much care and attention as the second side as the first. Last few moments here. See if you can relax a little bit more. And then same. So slowly at first, just a couple millimeters. Pause. And then all the way out. Oh my gosh, it's just such a weird pose. It's not a pose, it's a stretch. Okay, and then we come on up. So for me, my shoulders feel a little bit like jello. So just being cautious when you come back up all the way to seated. And we'll work on Gomukhasana arms. So this isn't a traditional yin pose. My arms don't want to work very quickly. So what we'll do, put your legs in any position that feels like they're just out of the way. So for me, it's just sort of thunderbolt pose, sitting on the back onto the heels. And then what we'll do is the top arm first. So right arm goes up and then heading back. So right from the get-go here, I can tell my elbow wants to go forward. It doesn't want to do that. I don't like this stretch, but it's so good for us. So what we'll do is take the other arm and gently guide the elbow back. And if you can see, my back will arch. It wants to arch because my body's like, what are you doing? You're trying to kill me. And so then what we need to do is try not to arch the back, but feel the stretch in the triceps. So one of the reasons yogis have such tight triceps, it's the back of the arms, is because of all those chaturangas that we do. And it's one of those things where if you don't like vinyasa, you're like, oh, now I feel guilty. I should be doing more chaturangas. But then when you do all the chaturangas, you're like, yay, I did all the chaturangas, but now I get punished with this stretch is really hard. Have I whined enough about this stretch? Holding here. One of the things I like to do too, and being really, really cautious, of course, but you can kind of multitask with neck strength. So using the head to, if you get the elbow behind the head, then you can gently use the head to draw the elbow back, which oddly feels the same as leg behind head. It, as soon as you get your leg behind the head, you're like, yeah, but then you can't hold your head up. And you're like, what is happening? So yoga always keeps us humble. We've been here a little while, so instead of going right into the full pose, we'll come out nice and slow. And smile, because this is all in good fun. And then we'll do the other side. And here we go. So left arm goes up and back. So eventually trying to get that elbow behind the head. Mine does not want to go there. Very gently. So very, very, very gently, taking all the time you need. And sometimes one arm is a little tighter than the other. And then same. If you're feeling a really big stretch, don't worry too much about anything. If you're not feeling that big of a stretch, then feel free to try to get the elbow behind the head, straighten out the back, don't let it arch, and then lift the head kind of up and back. But obviously, if it's a big stretch, just as it is, don't do any of those additional things. So what we're trying to do is get eventually the fingers down the back between the shoulder blades. And just holding here. And then slow. Come on out. Okay. Then we can do the full position. Sometimes I like to draw this out even more. And when I say like to, I don't mean I like to, but it's a good thing to do once in a while. And then do just the bottom arm with a strap or something. But we'll do the full arms now, kind of focusing on that bottom arm. So we want the upper arm bone to be correctly in the shoulder socket. So we draw the elbow back, or this bit here, shoulder. So top arm goes back, and then you're trying to kind of shimmy that bottom hand between the shoulder blades, finding the hands behind you, but at the same time, draw that left shoulder back, back, back. And then slowly, slowly. I literally can't come out of this quickly. So I need my, my top hand to help my bottom hand out. Oof, da. Take a moment. And then we'll head into the other side. I literally, like, I can't even talk in that pose. It's so intense for me. Here we go, left arm high. And then right arm goes back around, down and up, while drawing that right shoulder back, back, back. And then slowly, slowly, come on out. Oh, all right. Maybe I should do that one a little more often. Okay, we'll do that more often. Okay, so then the next one is nice though, I promise. Oh, that was my foot cracking. I don't know if that picked up on the mic. Janu Shirshasana. So starting in Dandasana staff pose. Let's start with the right leg. So bending the left leg, kind of like tree pose, but seated. Inhale, lifting up tall, and then reaching forward. Oh, my timer's way over there. Okay. We'll just do a 2-minute one for this one, I think. Let's do a 3. Let's do a 3. Let's get nice and cozy. And last 40 seconds or so. And to come out, slow, 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 just for a little bit. Pause. And then all the way up and switching sides. Oh my gosh, that felt like 24 minutes. So if you or your students are, oh my gosh, begin, I'll get there with the timer, are fidgeting in yin. So fidgeting is, you're not supposed to fidget in yin. So if you are, it's an indication that you need to, like my kids, for example, they're bouncing and flouncing around. I always say, go get your sillies out. Go for a run. Go for a run, go jump on the trampoline, go to the park, that kind of thing. Except for I can't go for a run. I told myself, like, do not do that before stretching. Like I will break something for sure. So need to stretch first. And then definitely need to do something. Maybe that's a vinyasa class or something like that. But I like running. Not like good at it, but I like it. And even more so like how I feel after. But there was no way after a week of 9 to 5 desk sitting. Which does bring up a really interesting debate in the yogic world or fitness world. Do you stretch first and then exercise, or exercise and then stretch, whether it's running or whether it's weight training or whatever it is? And I don't think that there's any consensus anywhere on it. Some people think something and other people think other things. I always tend to look at who's in the most physically best shape ever. And it's usually like gymnasts, honestly. Like if I'm honest, gymnasts, I think, are in kind of the top peak condition of any humans, which of course is a controversial statement in and of itself, but they do both. Like just both at the same time, kind of. Their entire sessions are stretching and strength. So it depends what your goal is. If you're trying to win a race or something, then there's specific, do this before that. But I think a little stretch before exercise is good. I think a little stretch after exercise is good. So, but also tuning into the body. So for me, I know, I've heard if you're going to go for a run and do yoga, do the run first. But for me, I was like, no, that's not going to be a good idea. So being really body aware, I think, is step one. Know what your body needs more of. I still think doing a little stretching before a run is smart. And then slowly, 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 come on up. Only one more stretch before we head into our actual peak pose for the day. So straddle. Stepping the feet apart. So this isn't a specific, well, I guess it's sort of similar to Samakonasana in Hatha Yoga. Try to move the legs as far apart as possible. We often, in basic sequence that we practice for yoga teacher training, we do Upavishta Konasana, And that's a very set kind of angle, but this one, just as far as they'll go. So maybe that's not quite as far as Upavishta, or maybe it's farther. Either way, flipping over the timer. I can't reach my blanket. It's fine. This is where I miss a real class. If I was in a class with a teacher right there, and she saw me going like this, then it would magically appear right here. Those are nice days. I miss those days. I would watch for that in yin class if any student looked like they were wishing they had something nearby. Why do we do that? It's like, maybe I can levitate. Let me just try it first. I mean, it's never happened before, but you never know when you're like, I don't want to move. Back in the olden days, it was the TV remote. Oh, it's over there. It's fine. I'll just watch this channel. Last few moments here, a couple deep breaths. And slowly, slowly come on out. Take your time. And then we'll head to standing for Parsvottanasana. All right, so standing up. Okay, so for this one, what we'll do is step back with the left foot. So like medium-sized step back, not a huge step back. And situate your feet so that you're able to have the right hip in line with the left. So if it's just not going, step the front foot out a little bit more, and then those hips should square off. And then the hands go behind you in reverse namaskar. So my shoulders are very tight, but just quickly so I can show you, you can see my scapula probably winging out a bit, and you can see my shoulders are kind of slouched forward. So what we want to do is, if you can get the hands back here, then draw the shoulders and elbows back. And that kind of naturally presses the hands together. If this is a no-go, then just clasp the hands behind you, which I believe is the original way Krishnamacharya did this one in his book that he wrote in 18 something. Inhale, lifting up tall. Exhale, draw that right hip back, back, back. And long straight spine. Oops. drawing the elbows back. My mic wire hit my foot and I thought, that must be a spider. It startled me. Couple deep breaths. And on an inhale, come on all the way up. I think that was 5 deep breaths-ish. And then release the arms. And return to mountain, preparing for the other side. So this time we'll step back with the right foot. And same thing again, just shuffling the feet, situating them so that the left hip is squared up with the right. And then arms go all the way up behind you. And I know mine feels so much looser than they usually do in this pose. Usually it's like a to get the hands all the way up. And then drawing those elbows and shoulders back. Inhale, lifting the heart. On the exhale, forward fold as that left hip continuously draws back so that everything is all square. And a few deep breaths here. Still shoulders back. Still elbows back. And on the inhale, come on all the way up. And release the arms, nice and slow, returning to Tadasana mountain pose. And from here, I just have a couple of really nice stretches as a counter stretch to our Parsvottanasana. So either Anjaneyasana or Gecko. So choose your own adventure, whatever you're feeling this morning. And we're not holding for 2 minutes or anything like that, just a nice stretch. So either this one, or if you want to just go a little bit further, then popping those toes off the floor, finding those toes. We'll do a 1 minute hold or less. Coming out whenever you need to. But that's already been about 15 seconds. And that's been 45. And then slowly we'll switch sides or the same variation as the first side. So either Anjaneyasana, low lunge pose, or popping those toes off the floor, finding those toes, and breathing deep. And slowly release. And then let's get ready for Shavasana, because we can. That feels so much better. I think that last Anjaneyasana was kind of the cherry on top. So if you wanted to put a sweater back on or grab a blanket, whatever you need to feel cozy. And then once you're ready, laying all the way back. And as always, if your back wants a little extra support today, Feel free to keep the knees bent with the feet on the floor. Otherwise, extending arms and legs. Palms facing up. And closing the eyes. Softening everything, everything. But especially through the neck and the shoulders. And all the way down the arms. Letting the fingers softly curl. Softening through the face. Softening around the eyes. And even the muscle between the eyes. But we're not here long. Starting to come back. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. And gently roll your head from side to side. And reaching your arms above head on the floor for a big stretch, feeling totally refreshed. Bend your knees in one at a time. And gently roll over to the right side. Pausing for just a moment as you come back. And slowly press yourself all the way up to a comfortable seated position, taking all the time you need. But when you arrive, palms facing up on the knees, inhale, sitting up tall. Exhale, closing the eyes, and taking those final moments to thank yourself for showing up to your practice today and taking care of you. And slowly open the eyes. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that feels a lot better. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Carla.